In the early morning of April 6, 1862, the Confederate Army marched to the Union encampment at Pittsburgh Landing, Tennessee. The Union troops were trying to capture Corinth, a main railroad town that connected the Atlantic with the Mississippi. 250 soldiers had been firing at the Confederates near Corinth, at Shiloh Church for the past 3 days. After the Union troops called for backup, the Confederates attacked and caused the first major death toll in the Civil War. It became known as the Battle of Shiloh. After a string of victories in the South, Union troops in Tennessee, 40,000 strong, were ordered up the Mississippi into the heart of the Western Confederacy near Corinth. Grant was told to wait off his attack until more soldiers arrived, but rainy weather turned the roads into mud, delaying the attack on the Union Army. Beauregard called off the attack, and General Albert Johnston declared that he would attack at daylight. Most Union officers suspect that Johnston remained in Corinth, despite reports from scouts that the rebels were on the march. 42,000 rebel soldiers marched towards the Union troops at daylight. Grant's right flank was the first to see gray uniforms. General Sherman remained convinced until around 7 a.m. that this was an actual attack, so he keeps his men somewhat forward and backwards at the same time. But he finally calls his troop back, and his orderly is shot, and he himself was shot in the hand. Grant then departed from his headquarters across the Tennessee River to Pittsburgh Landing with orders. Lew Wallace's division to reinforce his line, but a series of errors turns a 2-hour march into 7. Union General Buell also wasn't able to make it to the battlefront until dusk. By 10:30 a.m., the Confederates had pushed General Sherman and McClellan's soldiers back. Johnston was able to bend Grant's line, but in the wrong direction, towards Pittsburgh Landing, where the line could be shorter and stronger. The Union right flank retreats, leaving Confederates about an hour to loot their camps, giving Sherman and McClellan's soldiers time to regroup and launch a ferocious counterattack. For 3 hours, the Union right flank pounds the Confederate lines. The Union troops committed the counterattacks, forced Johnston to put his last reserve troops in for battle. Confederates made repeated attempts to break Union's Hurlbut's division in a peach orchard, and they finally do, because around 2 o'clock, Hurlbut is forced back. Johnston is shot in the leg and dies around 2:45. He's the highest-ranking officer ever to be killed in the Civil War. Around 4 o'clock, Hurlbut and McClellan's soldiers withdraw, leaving Prentiss and Wallace defend for themselves. Grant Center, under W.H.L. Wallace, and what used to be Prentiss's ranks, form a half-mile front in a thick grove of trees. This event was named the Hornet's Nest because of the whizzing bullets sounded like bees. Parts of 14 of the 16 Confederate brigades were attacking the Hornet's Nest by early afternoon and smashed the Hornet's Nest with nearly 60 cannons. Wallace and Prentiss decided to withdraw, but Wallace was shot in the head and died. During April 6th, the Union Army was pushed back 2 miles. Ironclads named Tyler and Lexington battered the Confederate forces from the Tennessee River. The Confederates can't make any headway on the Union Army and decide to withdraw. They retreat to abandoned Union camps for the night. Beauregard thinks Grant's backup troops are not coming, despite sightings of them marching. Buell's division actually had a hand in defending Grant's last line, and Lew Wallace's division arrived around dusk. Grant decides to attack at dawn. Around 6 in the morning, Grant has 40,000 soldiers ready to fight. The Confederates have about 28,000. The Union tries to push back the rebels, but the battle-weary Confederates hold fast. Beauregard managed a few counterattacks, but calls for a mass retreat, and Grant will not pursue until the 8th. Over 24,000 men died at Shiloh, and it was an important victory for the North. No one will ever forget the sacrifices made by both sides at Shiloh, and the tales of the men who fought there will live on forever.